So first of all, business strategy. You need to be very specific about your own business purpose. You can't be specific enough to begin with. It's in case of, focusing on your market segment, knowing exactly what your website purpose is, cross-platform compatibility, and site progression. So let's go into business purpose to begin with. You need to have a think about, where exactly you make money and where you could make money in the future. You need to think, completely out of the box, perhaps, and not necessarily within your current business model. What do your services relate to that perhaps, you could actually offer your existing customer base as well? In terms of offering affiliate marketing as well, obviously you can actually offer a percentage of you can actually gain money, gain 20%, 40% of different products that could sell associated to your existing product or service. So you need to consider affiliate marketing if you're building up an email list and you're wanting to recommend other products and services. But in terms of your own particular business purpose, do your categories within your website have a really logical relationship? If not, you need to take time, just sit out and actually try and determine, how can you best structure your website to begin with? Because ideally you need to have maybe 10, 20, 30 categories within your website, and then you can have subsections with that. Is there a logical flow within your website? In terms of specific market segment, you can't be specific enough. You need to decide on your ideal customer and then speak to them individually. A lot of big corporations are fairly formal in the way they present themselves online, and that's not really the way the medium works. People are kind of sitting, flicking away, reading a few lines. You need to make your website as sticky as possible, so it's important to test and keep on testing. And you can actually have a couple of different versions of each page on your website and display them. And if you're testing it all the time, then you can see what works best for you. So your website itself can either be a brand builder, that is simply a means of actually telling people about your business and getting them to contact you. It could be a lead generator, obviously focusing on names and email addresses and then contacting them after that, or perhaps building them into what's called an autoresponder that we'll go into later on. Or it could be a direct sales tool where you're actually selling obviously products or services directly online. And I'd certainly encourage you to try and think about making your website all three of these really to maximize its potential. A little word about compatibility. There are different browsers out there, namely Internet Explorer and Firefox. And there are also mobile browsing devices, mobile phones as well. You've got to think about how your website looks on different devices, on different browsing devices. Because if you have a look at your website on Internet Explorer and you have a look at your website on another browser, such as Firefox, which is now used by roughly 25% of the population, then if your website doesn't work properly for some reason, some click contact button doesn't actually work on Firefox, then you could be losing an awful lot of people and not even realizing it, because perhaps you use Internet Explorer in the office all the time. So there are lots of different compatibility issues potentially with your websites that you need to consider. For instance, people in the design industry, maybe a lot of Opera users, that's the Apple browser. Safari's the Apple browser. There's another browser called Opera as well. So there's lots of different browsers out there. So try and make your website as compatible as possible with as many different browsers. And like mobile phones, quite commonly have maybe just 200 pixels wide, rather than your standard 1024 pixels wide for a normal screen size. So there's so much you can do. You can have a little bit of coding in the top of your web pages to actually say, well, if this web page is being viewed with a mobile phone, then don't display all these big images in the top. Just go straight to the text. So that makes things a lot more user-friendly. Perhaps if your target market's younger, then maybe more people will actually be browsing your website with mobile phones as well. So test your website, see what it looks like on different browsers, different screen sizes. Slow internet connections is the other one that I want to cover as well, because a lot of people are still using dial-up. Maybe perhaps a lot of your dial-up, your audience, you're assuming are using broadband, but it's not necessarily the case. So if you've got a singing, dancing website, you need to test how quickly it loads up on dial-up. Site progression. That needs to be as logical as possible for users. And I'd like to use a website that I've just had designed recently, just to give you an example. It's called Destination Guide TV. And in terms of site progression, obviously it's fairly logical and fairly common sense in terms of how this site is structured, because it's about travel videos, so I'm using continents and countries and breaking things up like that. But there are a few tips that you can take from here to use in your own website, such as if you have different categories and subcategories, it's important to not list every single page from your home page. Do break things down, because this will make things easier for search engines as well. So the main categories are like Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Europe. But within Europe, when Europe's open, I've got all the countries within Europe being listed on the page, but those countries are only listed when Europe are open. Also, I've got backwards compatible navigation going on here as well, which means that someone visits United Kingdom travel videos, then they can actually easily go back to Europe travel videos, so they know exactly where that fits into the website in terms of navigation structure. Ideally, what you're looking for is for hundreds of web pages within your website to be listed in search engines and to be found in search engines. And if people land on this page straight from a search engine, then they'll understand exactly where this page fits into the website. So you've got to ask that question about your own website. If they land on a random page on your website, does it make sense? Can people really tell what you do as a company and where that fits in to your website as a company? So that's the obvious relationship between categories you need to have a really good think about beforehand. In terms of website categories as well, it's important to do a lot of research to make sure you've got them absolutely right. You can brainstorm in-house, you can research what your competitors are doing, but you can also have a look at Thesaurus as well. Thesaurus.com online, I do a bit of research here. If I click travel in thesaurus.com, it gives me a few other ideas, things like adventure, sailing, kind of touring, so it gives me other ideas of what I could possibly include as features within the website, linking back to travel. And it would also give search engines a better indication that it fits specifically into the category that it's giving it, and it gives it more of a chance of appearing for relevant searches and search engines by actually really ordering your categories right and taking time to determine the exact titles of all your categories on your website. So that's week one, really having a think about your business purpose, getting your market segment focused on, getting as specific as possible about who your customer is, your purpose for your website, to try and have that brand image, but also capture as many contact details as possible as well, and ideally sell things online. Cross-platform compatibility, Internet Explorer, Firefox, mobile browsing devices, and site progression as well, kind of backwards and forwards. It needs to be as logical as possible. You need to reduce the chances of people kind of getting fed up and not knowing what they're doing on your website, and keep them sticky, and have a specific goal with users on your website.